What's up, guys? We got another video on our hands today. This is what if Issei was the reincarnation of Escanor and Whitebeard, 18 plus. Now, I know it makes zero sense to make this, but I have to. Now, if you don't know who Escanor and Whitebeard are, Whitebeard is the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates from One Piece. He's also known as the father, because he basically adopts every kid that is on the open water that needs protecting. And if he goes a little bit too powerful into his body, it may kill someone. Like, he's got Hockey, Conquerors, Division 1, and I don't know what the other one was. Armament, yeah. So yeah, he's got Observation, Armament, and Conquerors Hockey, easily. Like, it's nothing to him. And even if he just looks in your general direction and he's pissed off, you fucked up. No one can stop this man. Escanor, on the other hand, who is just as much of a fucking threat in his own verse, is, well, he's the captain of fuck around and find out. If he walks in a room and you swing at him, you die. Or you just regret every decision you've ever made that led up to this point. Now, quick thing, Escanor is 10'8" in his full-size form. If you don't know, that's tall as shit. That's around the same height as the world's tallest man ever recorded. And Whitebeard is no slouch either in size. His full height is 21 feet and 10 inches. Now I'm going to split that down the middle and say 15 foot and 9 inches. That's what we're going with. I know it's not exact, but it's the closest fucking thing I'm doing to exact measurements. So yeah, 15 feet and 9 inches. But he's not going to start off the anime that fucking giant. Well, both of these monstrous men are inside Issei's head with, Drake. In this version, when they both died in their respective verses, Escanor dying because he was just too strong and his own power killed him, and Whitebeard dying because he got jumped multiple times, had to fight an entire army by himself, basically, held up an entire marine fort, and also had to deal with multiple admirals. That's how he died. And then he was still gunned down by one of his old crew, by one of the people he used to take care of, who killed him and stole his fruit. Very, very fucked up, but what are you gonna do? That's what these motherfuckers do. But in this version, when they both died, their souls went somewhere else, along with their abilities. Yes, sure, the Whitebeard's fruit still, the crack fruit still went to where it needed to be. It's still in Blackbeard. That's the whole thing's happened. But in this version, Whitebeard kept the abilities when he died. And through the eyes, as if they're just sitting there on thrones made of, well, their own materials. Escanor probably made of gold, sitting on it, like, not giving a fuck. And for Whitebeard, I'm not sure. I think it'd just be like a ship kind of shaped one. Them both sitting on their respective thrones, looking out of the eyes of Issei. But they do note that even with this kid, he won't be normal. Now, because this is going to be an 18 plus, I have to make it a little bit more 18 plus. So, when Issei's mother gave birth to him, she died. And by chance, his father was not sure what to do. You know what? No. His mother died of cancer when he was 5. This would lead to 2 years of Issei, who was as close to his mother as any child ever could be, and basically was a real mama's boy, even though he was a mountain of man. And, by the way, he's way big for his size. He's the size of an average 10-year-old when he's 5. I don't know how big that is, but still. As Issei proceeded to, talk to his mom, saying, "What's wrong, mama?" with all that, as she said, "Don't worry, honey, I'll be okay." And this is when, surprisingly enough, because they always cared about each other, Issei even wound up sleeping right next to his mother in its sofa until she died. Issei's father, who didn't give a fuck about Issei, did not give a damn, was a multi-millionaire businessman, did not give a damn about Issei. And And this is when he had his own mansion for himself. And issei, he was about to move to another house, but saying, fine, I'll take care of you for 2 years. He just hired nanny after nanny after nanny, and every few weeks they would just give up because trying to feed his big ass was damn near impossible unless you cooked a full Thanksgiving feast for him to have in one meal because he was just growing every day. Eventually his father was getting fed up of it and said, I have half mine, just send him to an orphanage. Right before he was going to call, he saw a woman. And this is 3 years after his wife died. This woman was Graphia, who just got kicked out of the estate of Grimmery because, well, after having, Cerzex's kid, Cerzex found another woman. A woman by the name of Elsa. This woman, I don't even know if she would, I don't think, yeah, she's just something I made up in my head. She would decide to get rid of Graphia, saying, do you really want an old-time devil going around? I mean, didn't you already get what you wanted from her? Her power of her bloodline? Cerzex saying, of course, now you can be my queen. And she was just a human with ice magic, though she was known as the only one whose ice was on the same level of Graphia's. And this is when she would decide to, get into Cerzex's heart, and it didn't take that long for her to do it. Millicus stayed with Cerzex as Graphia was kicked out, only with a little bit of money to her name. A few $1,000s, not a big deal. This is when, surprise, surprise, issei's father finds her walking around in a complete maid's uniform, and this is when he had asked, do you need a job? Out of sheer dumb luck, yes, she did. Yes, why? Would you like to be my head maid and nanny to my son? I will not live at the house, but I need you to raise him. I don't mind. Why? How old is he? 8 years old. Kind of surprising her since her own son is 1 year old. Saying, well, never really got to be a mother, so may as well try raising up a child. This is when she got there and she saw an 8-year-old issei who already stood at 6'1". She said, I thought you said he was an 8-year-old, not a grown-ass man. He's only 8 years old. Huh? Issei was playing with a fire truck at the moment, saying, hi, miss. As Issei then proceeded to, say, do you need help with your bag? Showing her to her room. It was the second master room, since Issei had the first. And Issei's father had his own mansion, so it wasn't really a big deal. He just moved out. And he wanted moving out of Kuo, out of everything. But every single day he would send a certain amount of money to them. $4,000. As Graphia's paycheck for the month was $4,000, and the food costs were around $200 to $300 a week. And this was just for issei. Seeing as Graphia was given every expense paid, well, she had to be. She had to be the one taking care of him. So she was given all that money, all 4,000 of it a month. As well, emphasis on as well, as, hold on a second, guys. Like I was saying, and for herself, she was given $400 for food, though the amount of food she had to make was usually around like 20 plates. He ate like a Saiyan would in Dragon Ball, so yeah. And he had massive cups for him to use. And after 3 years of this, Graphia noted that issei was actually starting to perv out on her, and she didn't really mind. She actually found it quite enjoyable that someone was perving out on her, although she was a little bit surprised it wasn't an 11-year-old kid. But what's she gonna do? Graphia, who really didn't care, and every day issei asked if she would marry him. Every time it was cold as shit being said, no, not my type. After around 2 years of this, issei now being 15, and this is about 2 years before canon would happen, issei towers over her by far, being at an astounding 9'4". At this point, Grafia literally has to just walk up to him and actually has to use her ice magic, which Issei found out she was a devil really quick. Because the weapons she had appeared to him. And one day, his magic took form. It went almost out of control, as 3 things would appear. The boosted gear, the axe Rita, and the Kimoagachi, which is, Whitebeard's weapon, as it would appear to his hand. And in his right hand was Whitebeard's Kimoagachi, in his left was Escanor's axe with the boosted gear. Grafia sang, "Issei, do you know what this is?" "No, what is it? What's wrong?" That's Rita, the mighty axe of the sun. Is that good? No one has wielded that axe in hundreds of years. It was one of the original weapons of God, and that Komodachi is one as well. It was known as the White Komodachi since it was bathed in holy white light, and any swing of it could make the earth crack. And even with it just being swung once was enough to make the Grand Canyons appear. That's how strong it is. Wow! As Issei noted, they were extremely heavy. This is when she noted that both of them were made for monstrous sizes of 10'8", being that was the size when God wielded. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to say the axe, the Rita, was actually wielded by Jesus, who was around 10 foot of solid muscle around when he was in his heavenly form. As saying, 21 foot and 10 inches as we know the height of God. Those two were giant. Their weapons, heaviest thing ever. There was no one who's ever been able to pick those 2 weapons up, much less both at the same time. Even myself struggles to pick them up. I only brought them with me because they're technically mine. How'd you bring them here? I had to use dimensional storage. I set them down in my room underneath my bed in case ever needed, but I highly doubted anyone could, use them. This is when Issei would simply say, "Really? So, I guess these are yours then." Giving them back to her, saying, "No, they're yours now." "What do you mean?" "No one's ever picked them up, much less wielded them the way you do as if they're yours. So, they're yours." Issei, who was very happy, saying, "Thank you, Grafia." Actually hugging her. Only problem is, as big as he is, he actually wound up going down to his knees, getting around her with a hug, basically crushing his face into her boobs. Since, it's still an 18+, what if, so I have to make it spicy. Grafia got a little flustered and actually grabbed Issei by the face, saying, "Stop." Issei saying, "Why? I'm really happy." "I know you're happy, Issei, but please stop." "Fine." This is when Issei, surprisingly enough, would set down both of them. Grafia using her own magic to make them both into the shape and size of keychains, admitting they'd still be the exact same weight that they were, but they'd only be the same size as a keychain. As heavy as they were. As saying, "So, Issei, don't ever just hold your keys by one key. Even though this is made of the strongest metal in the underworld, it may snap if it's put with the weight of these 2 mighty weapons. So hold it all in my hand at once?" "Yes." "Okay." This is when Issei would ask a question that was kind of surprising to her. "So, I found out I can do something. You want to watch?" "Sure, let's go, Issei. But if it's special, let me do something real quick." Making a barrier. When they went to the park, Issei swinging his hand to the right as hard as he could, and then being instantly stopped as the around it started to crack with large cracks. Grafia saying, "Cracks. No, it can't be." Then making on his left hand a ball of the sun appear. The sun? It cannot be. This is when her kind of terrified said, "Is there anything else you want to show me?" "Yes, this," as she pulled out the boosted gear in its full form, since, kind of stayed activated all night, since he didn't know how to turn it off. Grafia was kind of freaked out, saying, You wield the two strongest weapons in history, as well as the strongest in physical strength gear in history. I'm glad I'm with you, issei. No other nanny could handle this. And at this point, for 2 years, Grafia and issei trained together. Issei wasn't allowed to use the boosted gear at all. But whenever he did train, and that was with the weapons equipped, he was only ever allowed to use one at a time. Though Grafia did always do some training with him for two weapons at once. Though admittingly, whenever he would pick up both of them and swing them around as if they were his own, cracks would start to appear on the world and everything, and the sun and behind him would start being a sun. It was kind of freaking her out, as even with her full power, she wasn't even half as strong as issei is. And her magic is almost enough to keep her along the lines of Sir Zex's power. Not 100%, but close enough to where she's considered the strongest queen, which puts her at least half as strong as Sir Zex. And we do know she's almost on the same strength as Sona's older sister, the Leviathan. Anyway, back to What If. Issei, who straight up still had a crush on Grafia this whole time, and Grafia fucking knows it. Thing is, one night, Drake appeared in Issei's head. And Issei straight up said, Drake wanted me to talk to you and all this, saying yada yada yada, that Whitebeard and Escanor wanted to meet Grafia and issei, but they'd have to drag her into his dreams. The only way to do that is by skin contact when they're asleep. Grafia, who didn't really blush at all, was fine with this. She went completely naked, wrapping herself around issei. Issei, who's so fucking massive that she was just laying on his chest with her arms around his neck, and he was just laying on this monstrous bed that was like as big as the ones Rias had in her house. Now, issei barely fit in the room. Since this was still the same house he had in canon, since he always has to be bent over trying to get in these rooms. At this point, being in his much higher height of 10'4". Even with this massive height of 10'4", the house only goes around 8 foot, and 12 foot in the room direction, even though he has the master bedroom, which makes it a lot larger, but still not quite big enough for him. He has to have a special tub installed, which wasn't really a big deal for his father. Special bed, not really a big deal, though he refused to make the house any taller for him. This is when issei would do something no one really expected. He always wound up getting a job, so even though he was mountainous, like the size of him was just massive, so anyone who wanted protection would call him. He wound up getting jobs from his schoolmates, to help them get home by walking them home so they'd be protected. He went to the most dangerous areas in town, and no one would fuck with him, as big as he was. And he's solid muscle. He's as big and muscular as these two. This is when issei, who's basically at the same size as Escanor was, and actually is actually starting to gain a mustache. Not fully, but he's deciding whether he should get it or not. And this is when issei would wind up finally doing something he's wanted to do for a long time. When they pulled Grafia into the dream, they did something else as well. Issei was in his full form. Issei looked at them both, looking as if, even though he was only around the height of the waist of Whitebeard, who was standing with his legs completely spread open like that to, his fighting stance. Escanor doing his own fighting stance, just about the same shape, noting that this put them closer to the same height, but not quite. As this is when Drake stood behind them, stating who they all were. Whitebeard saying, "I am Whitebeard," figuring out the whole life story of Whitebeard, and even the whole life story of Escanor, and Drake stating his story and everything. Issei saying, "Wow." Grafia saying, and she's still latching on Issei's arm, kind of terrified of these 3 legendary figures before her. Sure, there was no Whitebeard or Escanor, but in her mind, these guys look a lot like the original God and original Jesus. So she's terrified. And there's no way she's willing to, take much of other than fear when seeing these 3 monsters. Issei, who was surprised when his, weapons would appear right next to him, right in front of him in their hand. Them saying, "Here," Issei, throwing him their original outfits, saying they'll resize to you anytime you see them. Anytime you grow, they will grow with you. This is when the entirety of Escanor's armor would come with him as well. The one he was wearing against Essarosa, and the one he was wearing when he fought against Meliodas. Basically, all the different variations of Escanor's, armor went with Issei, and all the different variations of Whitebeard's went with Issei as well. Them both saying, "You should grow a mustache. Trust me, you'll love it. It's the truest source of power." Issei saying, "Okay." As he was finally deciding, he will grow a mustache. He was already mountainous in size, so it made sense. As this is when Issei decided, since he saw about a year before, I'm going to say he saw it a year before he's going to be in the same school he was. So over and right now it's summer break. I'm going to say he has 3 months. Over said 3 months, he does nothing but train, grow facial hair and everything. And this is when, surprise, surprise, Issei wound up getting Whitebeard's type mustache. Prime Whitebeard, the big old bullhorn looking one. The myth one. As this is when, surprisingly enough, Escanor kind of said, "I was kind of hoping it'd be more like mine." Saying, "Well, if it ever gets shorter, I might. Right now I just chose this one since I liked it the best." Whitebeard kind of smirking, though, noting that there was 2 forms of each one of the guys in there. There was the big muscular version of Escanor and the small scrawny one. There was also the prime version of Whitebeard and the elderly one, as they all looked massive though, except for, skinny Escanor, which was only 5'5". As this is when surprisingly enough, Issei starts laughing with them. As they had finally decided, they'll do it. He'll become the truest, strongest, and show who the realest man is. And then actually figuring out Graphia's life story. Graphia hearing them actually weep for her, saying, "That bastard deserves to be ripped in half for what he did." Whitebeard's rage actually overcoming him, actually thinking of Graphia same way he would anyone else, like a child to him. As this is when Escanor thought of this as deplorable, seeing Graphia as the only one as perfect as Merlin ever was. And seeing as Issei kind of thinks a little bit like Escanor, Issei thought this would be the only woman as perfect as he is. But like Whitebeard, he's too much of a fighter to ever fully go out his feelings the way he would want to. But like Issei, he's also extremely perverted. So yeah. And this is when Drake finally said something that broke the silence completely. "If you wish to have the power, train with every one of the abilities at once." Graphia saying, "How am I going to keep up with this?" "Simple, Graphia Lucifuge. What is it? What you need to do is, the way to train them properly, here, holding the keychain looking things, put these around his wrists. They're wristbands. They connect to the keychains. They will be able to withstand the weight. They're made of dragon scale. Alright? If he has them around his wrist, as well as possibly, actually both on the right side and having the booster gear on the left, and he was to, say, have sex with you, then it would increase his strength to the point where he could get to be the strongest. In all fashion, that's actually how you gain the most strength." Escanor starting to smirk, saying, It works very, very well." Whitebeard with an even bigger smirk, saying, "Of course it works. It's the most useful thing you can ever imagine." Issei saying, "Really?" Drake started to smirk the most, saying, "Of course. Did you really think we were this powerful by chance?" This is when Graphia actually said something that was unexpected. "Is that how Great Red got so powerful?" This is when they started to laugh, saying, "Great Red, that horn dog, he only got that powerful because he couldn't stop." "Wait, really?" "Yes. every dragoness he could find. I'm pretty sure he almost tried it with Ophis before she almost ripped his dick off. Ew, Issei thinking. Don't be surprised. The second strongest being in existence versus the strongest one. It's gonna be a fight. Well, whatever. It was nice to see all y'all, and this is when they said, let's have one training session. We'll teach you how to properly use those powers. This is when Gravy said, how long are we going to be in here? Well, to your minds, it'll be as if we were in here for 3 years. So I'll be stuck with Issei for 3 more years? In his mindscape. Yes, you will not need to eat, sleep, or anything. This is when, surprisingly enough, Issei said something that no one expected. Issei questioned them. How much training could they get done in that 3 years? With Grafia, Issei and Grafia started, understanding each other a lot more. Actually finally being finished with, his training. At the end of those 3 years, training 1 year with the powers of the sun with Escanor, 1 year with the powers of the crack fruit with Whitebeard, and 1 year with the boosted gear with, Drake. But after these each year is done, they decide to have one final test, using all 3 of them combined. Issei, who, in his spare time, would train these all together. Gravia encouraging Issei, as Issei was to now have a 3 versus 1, not in his favor. Issei flew forward using sunshine in his full 1 form, which he can now activate at any time of day or nighttime, really. The true 1 form, which his body was completely lit on fire, which really killed Escanor, which it doesn't kill Issei, since, a lot more durable. And Whitebeard showing him the full abilities of hockey and all that. So his swings are straight up beastly. Even Conqueror's hockey, which being that he's the truest king, even above the kings, this puts him above everything, making his Conqueror's hockey absolute. It didn't matter who you were. If you were weaker than him by more than 100, if you were 100th his strength, you wouldn't even be able to fully stay alive in his presence. If you were 1,000th his strength, you'd be dead. If you were 100th, you'd be able to somewhat stay alive. If you were 1/10 his strength, you could somewhat stay awake. And let's say you were 1/5 his strength, which is probably going to be only people like Great Red at this point. You may be at 1/5 of his strength, able to look him eye to eye and try to fight back, but unless you have your own version of Conqueror's hockey, you can't fight him completely. It just overwhelms you. I'd say even if the entirety of the underworld, heaven, and the fallen angels were to get against Issei at once at this point, they couldn't even scratch him, since he would just use his full hockey and everyone would go down, who wasn't, the Mao, or even if he didn't use Conqueror's hockey, he could easily outpower anyone else. But back to the what if. As Issei proceeded to, walk forward, first thing he did was fly forward and punch Drake in the face without even having the gauntlet equipped. Drake saying, "Ha, you forgot to boot." Oh no. As he sees the gauntlet now on his arm, as you hear, "Boost." As it starts to drag out the boosting, and this is when the 2 strongest wielders of Drake would appear and try to fight against Issei as well. Seeing this, Issei starts smirking as you hear, "Boost, boost." Kind of shitting themselves right now, saying, "Oh, no, 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 no." Yes. As every word was just boom, boom, boom. Everyone could hear the thud, thunder, lightning even hitting, the cracking of his punches. This is when, surprisingly enough, both versions of Whitebeard, both versions of Escanor, all try putting their full power. Both behind the crack fruit and both behind sunshine. All this was able to do. The sun was the biggest it had ever been, almost as big as the one in the sky. As it hit Issei, it bounced off like it was nothing, and it was erased instantly by a crack punch, by the crack fruit. swing of Issei. This is when they try using their crack fruit, when Issei just straight up pulled out his own cruel son with enough power to easily overwhelm this and send them flying. Them all saying, "You win. We have nothing else to teach you. What? Why not? We give you these. It's our own clothes. From our prime and our older age, even our weakest." This is when Drake gave him something he would never forget. Dragon Force. From Fairy Tail, basically. As his skin will start to get scaly when he goes into it a little bit, it will have the same, dragon scales. It'll be more red in tint, and it'll even be able to make him easier to breathe fire, and boosting without the gear would be kind of doable. Though if he wanted the truest version of it, he'd have to at least sacrifice one of his limbs, which he highly doubts he'll ever need to do. But he wound up doing something he wasn't expecting. He has the heart of a dragon. Not metaphorically. Like, straight up, his mother was very little bit dragon. That happened hundreds of years back. One of her ancestors was a dragon in human form. Now it basically meant that Issei was technically part dragon. So his dragon force was actually already perfect. Since he had technically the heart of a dragon, it made it where his dragon force was straight up the true thing. And he even had, with Drake's dragon force allowed him to use the abilities of Drake. Even the boosting was doable. Although the original dragon was actually Albion in human form, so being a descendant of Albion kind of freaks out, Drake, but not thinking it would be a big deal. Wondering if he could use any dividing ability. Noting the only one he had was called Cut in Half, which would basically cut his opponent's power in half, but he could only use it like once a day. Finding that completely useless unless it was like dire need, Issei decided, I'm just going to lock that one away in case it's an emergency. Have it in my back pocket in case I ever need to pull it out. Just in case. Drake understanding, saying, makes sense. Well, good luck. Thank you, Drake. Not a problem. Now goodbye, Issei, and is he well? And goodbye to you as well, Miss... You know what? I'm not even going to be sure about it, Miss Lucifuge. About what? How many kids you're planning on having with him? Excuse you? Oh, what, did I say something wrong? Do you not even have a guess of how high the number could be? Devils have very low mating things, but if you do anything enough, it'll happen. Okay, I'll give you that one, fair point. Well, bye, you two. Issei, keep your training up. Graphia, you too. Alright, goodbye. As this is when Escanor and Whitebeard start fading to ash, their souls fusing with Issei's. The next morning, Issei wakes up, seeing something he wasn't expecting. His soul is completely fused with the two men that, he's reincarnation of. As he looks at this, saying, what the hell? My strength. He threw a single punch, feeling far stronger, saying, it truly happened. I have all the power of the training of those 2 years, using his armament hockey and everything. This is when he looked down, noticing Graphia completely naked on his chest. As he said, honey, wake up. Graphia saying, what is it, dear? Look. What happened? I don't see any difference. But check this out. As he completely covered his body in armament hockey. Armament. Isn't that what Whitebeard used? I think my soul fused with theirs. Precious. Alright, well. You still got to go to school tomorrow. Issei then saying, fine. As he would say, I met this girl named Rias today. What? Rias Grimmery? Yeah, she's kind of weird. She wouldn't stop looking at me. Luckily, I got to escape from her. How? And you're sure you weren't followed? May have been followed, but I don't think anyone can get through that barrier you put up. You may be right, unless it's Rias herself or her queen. They may be able to scratch it. But that would instantly set up every alarm. Alright, good. Now, let's have some food. They go to eat dinner, and surprise, some motherfucking prize. The amount was just outrageous. Gravia needed help getting the full roasted pig out of the oven. And they have like these 3 giant ovens she was making all of these giant foods in. Issei took it out, another and another. Once they were all done, Issei then proceeded to grab what he wasn't expecting to grab. He grabbed an entire 4 bowls of pasta. 2 spaghettis, 2 Alfredos. As Gravia would also help by grabbing a giant thing of broccoli. And as well, another one of giant thing of mac and cheese. And once they were done eating, Gravia noting she was stuffed her face completely full tonight with all the food they had, while Issei, once he was done, he was completely done. He cleared everything off that, and he was kind of overate just a little bit. They both did. As this is when they decided to actually go to sleep, in quotation marks, because they actually just went to Issei's room and they tested how much the bed could handle. Gravia putting up 4 different indestructibility things on it, so it wouldn't break. Strengthening spells, anything she could. After 2 full hours of Issei pounding her brains out, this is when Gravia would open her eyes, saying, we cut to her right afterwards saying, as she opened her eyes, saying, that was amazing, Issei. Issei, who's sitting down at the edge of the bed, saying, Gravia, you think one day we can maybe get the place increased in size? I hope so, honey. Well, how much money do we have saved up? Well, over the years, with both of our jobs together, I'd say 40,000. Issei was kind of smirking at this, saying, perfect. Sure, they always had some extra stuff paid for, and they always had that extra money coming in for the past few years. And this is when we skip 2 years, as Issei is now into the present day for himself. I know it's been a while, guys, but yeah. As Issei proceeds to pick up the most overwhelming sized food. He went to a buffet for lunch from Kuo. I'm going to say the cafeteria works, it's kind of like a buffet. It's grab what you can eat, yada yada yada. As big as Kuo is. This is when Issei walks in. Even though he's just a mountain of a man, Kuo doesn't have doors that are made to fit him. And for his uniform, they had to wait 2 weeks to get it. And once they actually finally got it in, Issei had just been wearing regular dress clothes the big ones that could barely fit him. And once they had these they actually had to set ladders up so they could measure his height. His weight was just giant, at an amazing 600-pound solid muscle. As this is when Issei would actually be a little bit taller, noting he was around 11'3". As big as this is, we have to acknowledge that this isn't Issei's full size. Issei stating he may have to get it sized up soon, but still. Them saying, how bigger can you get? I don't know. Probably a lot bigger, though. I hope not. Sona states. Issei saying, why? You're so big that it takes like 5 times the amount of fabric for the uniform. Do you have any idea how much money it costs to make these uniforms for you? How much? Almost 20 times the amount it does for regular school uniforms. Wow. Yeah, and your gym clothes are going to be just as fucking massive. Oh, yeah. Well, good luck, Sona. Come back in 2 weeks. And this is like right before the school started. Issei's now got his uniform and everything, his workout clothes, and he has to have this and when they're going on the track, Everyone thinks it's not fair that they have to run next to Issei. As big as he is, he takes up 2 lanes in the track. It just physically wouldn't fit him if he only took up 1. And it's even basically a 3rd lane. So there's 3 of the fastest runners in their class going against Issei. Issei, who can't really hide the fact, even if he had a regular human running speed, his legs are so long that whenever he steps, it's like so much more than everyone else. So if he ran, as tall as he is, it would just make him flying across there, like nothing was going on. His height made it so much easier for him to get there faster. His weight did not. And basically, anytime they had to do pull-ups, what they wound up having to do was take support beams, which were above the gymnasium. They would literally have to let him hook on to get up to one of those, which really wasn't hard for him to do since he was that fucking big. And these were things supposed to made over 200, these things were made to hold, full groups of people. Issei, with no one else on there, is straight up just doing pull-ups on them. And once they've measured all his pull-ups, he drops, the entire room shakes. Back to What If, though. As Issei would, be doing his merry way, he fell asleep in class, which he has a giant desk for his size. Just to fit him. Special made legs for it, everything. He has a special made chair that can handle his weight, which admittingly was expensive as shit to buy. It's like a solid slab of concrete in a sense, but it's also got enough cushioning on there for, basically plastic and everything instead of cushioning, school chairs. As whenever lunch happens, he straight has his own packed lunch. He also has to go to the cafeteria to grab food. Everything. Once the school days end, his 2 friends, Mitsuda and Motohama, who are still his best friends, his only friends because they weren't scared of how big he was, actually said something he wasn't expecting. Hey, dude, come here. He goes basically down to their eye level saying, hey, man, we found the perfect perving spot. Come on. Guys, y'all really think y'all can get away with this when I'm walking with you? I'm saying, sure, man. Issei, who just finished his lunch, and it's the end of the day, he walks over there with them, and everyone notices Issei. He stands like 2 people on top of each other's shoulders. So there's no way that anyone wouldn't notice him. This is when he wound up actually going, completely bending down, wondering what the fuck they were talking about. Seeing a tiny little hole, he looked, and he saw what he wasn't expecting. This is when he pulled his head back saying, y'all are fucking idiots. Besides, all the women are average. And when the girls walk out, knowing someone was there, they said, average, huh? Issei turning his head to look at them saying, yes, you are. How dare you? We are beautiful. Alright, whatever. Well, you might need to fill in that hole, so they stop perving at you. Excuse me, weren't you perving as well? No. They told me to come over here, so I did. Didn't know what the fuck they were trying to get me to look at. You know what, Issei? We don't believe you, so we're gonna beat your ass. Issei started to laugh, saying, go ahead, take that swing. They took an entire kendo team, was swinging at him with all their weapons. Issei straight up just sat there, crisscross. And he actually told Mitsuda and Monohama, hey, go get me some food. They both flew back here, seeing Issei getting hit every single time. Even seeing multiple kendo swords that broke against Issei's face. Issei saying, oh, good, you're finally here. Did you bring me enough food? Then with both having full, at least 4 bags on them each, full of food from Issei's wallet, as he gave it to them, would proceed to basically hand it to him. He was opening it and eating right as they were hitting him. Once the entire kendo team had broken weapons, they said, we still won't forgive you. And the only one who knew how to fist fight actually punches Issei in the face and drew a little bit of blood from his nose. He actually started laughing, saying, wow, you did good. You actually drew some blood. As he kind of sneezed it out, as he then proceeds to wipe it off with his arm, saying, but that's all you could do. Is that really all we could do? Was make you bleed? Yes, were you expecting more? Yes, we were hoping to break you in half. Oh, you think you're that strong. Okay, let me explain something to you. Unless you had two trucks, one wrapped around my wrists and the other wrapped around my ankles, pulling me with full power, I'm not gonna snap. But are you really that durable? Of course I am. I'm the strongest man alive. Whatever. As all the girls said, but you owe the whole Kendo team new Kendo sticks. You know what? Let's talk to Sona. Come here. The entire Kendo team follows him. He basically has to duck and get underneath the pillars so he can get into Sona's office, saying, "Hey, Sona!" Sona, who just sent the entirety of the student council home, saying, "Yes, who is it?" "Issei Hyoto." "I'm not surprised. Come on in." Issei came in with the entire Kendo team, and he states what happens. They say what they thought happened. Issei saying, "Alright, so they hit me for almost 2 hours, and they've been hitting me with Kendo sticks, and all this Kendo sticks broken, and her wrist is cracked." "How did her wrist crack? What did you do?" "I stood there and she punched me I sat down and she punched me in the nose." "Okay, are you an idiot, little girl? You punched this in the nose. What are you expecting to happen, that it would shatter? No, it's just going to break your hand. How hard did you hit him?" Issei started to laugh, saying, "Enough to draw blood." "Of course. Well, let's see something real quick." "Yeah? Let's see what's going on." "Well, they just really want new Kendo sticks, and I'm not going to buy them little Kendo twigs. They're Kendo swords, not twigs." "Oh, please, they snap like twigs." "Only because you're freaking massive." "Of course I'm massive. I'm a monster." "A monster." Them kind of freaking out, saying, "Fine." This is when Sona said, "Fine. School will furnish new ones. But I'd like it if y'all would refrain from hitting him in the face again." "Why, you like his face?" "A little bit, yes, but what I'm talking about is so you don't break your hand anymore." "Alright. The school, don't worry, we have free health care, so you should be completely fine going to the hospital." The little girl goes to the hospital, get her hand fixed. Once about 2 weeks pass, she can use her hand again. But this isn't about her, so let's go back to Issei. "Alright, that's cool. By the way, you do really like me?" As Sona would basically say, "Sit down, Issei." Issei, who sat down on the couch, Sona's starting to laugh, saying, "Why wouldn't I like you, Issei? After all, I was waiting for you this whole time." As Sona starts to strip completely naked. And she basically starts riding Issei for almost an hour straight. And once that hour was done, she was completely happy, saying, "And again tomorrow? Sure, we'll see about it." "Thank you." As she would go back and get dressed and everything, Issei saying, "Sona, I got a question." "Yes?" "You know your pawn fucking loves you, right?" "Yes, but I don't love him, so I can't exactly, do this with him." "Okay, well, you could at least tell him you're not interested." "But then he wouldn't want us to protect my life." I used to think you devils were cold, but now I just know you're just ice cold yourself, Sona." "Excuse you? I flow like water. I'm not cold. You're pretty frosty." "You're one to talk. You're always around the queen of ice." "Yeah, but I know how to make it drip." "Whatever. Well, same time tomorrow. Bye. Get here earlier next time, and don't start peeping again. Getting those Kendo swords is going to be a pain in the ass." "I mean, like the one you just had?" "Shut up, Issei." As 16 inches being, sheathed by her body was kind of hilarious for her. She was surprised of how monstrous it was at first, but she eventually just got over it. As he said, "See you tomorrow," as he proceeds to walk all the way home. Right midway point, when he's on the bridge, every step he takes starts to make the bridge crackle, and he can still swim, but he still doesn't like going in water, since as big as he is, he can't find anywhere other than the ocean for himself to swim in. And as big as he is, if a shark attacks him, it basically is the equivalent of a chihuahua attacking a human grown man. It ain't nothing. Issei, who just Didn't want to have to deal with it. Walked on the bridge. And this is when Yuma would still say, will you go out with me? Sure, I don't mind. Let's go. Once they're done going out, Issei has had a pretty good time knowing her. But he could figure out she's a fallen angel. He can already smell it on her, using his Dragon Force abilities. This is when Issei would say something unexpected. So, is there anything else you wanted to say? Yes, in fact there was. I actually had a question for you. Go on, shoot it. Would you die for me? Pardon? I don't think I heard that one quite right. What was that? I need you to die for me. You see, I thought that was what you said, but, you sure about that? Yes, throwing a light spear clean at Issei. It literally bounces off of his chest. He says, really? One light spear of your level is going to kill me. Are you sure about that? As his weapons would appear to his hand, as he starts smirking, saying, I am the true, strongest man alive. This is when, surprisingly enough, Ophis of all people, her snakes would appear. As all of them had 4 of her snakes, including Kokobile. As they would all appear in an instant, the other fallen and even Kokobile himself, all attacking Issei with full-powered beams from the beams of energy and everything. Issei, you know, this was actually a little bit of fun. This is when, surprisingly enough, Kokobile, who had an invisibility thing, made it where no one could even see him. You'd have to be able to see the future to tell where he was going to attack. Though, same for, for Issei, since his high level of hockey. This is when he waited and waited for the first sign of movement, which was an attack. It was about to hit him, just for Issei to move at a speed far faster than Kokobile. But not really being that surprised when 3 light spears hit him in the back and actually cut him. As this is when Kokobile, using the slight surprise of Issei, who sent a blast at Issei's face, which would have ripped it off, but all it did was wind up cutting off the side of Issei's mustache, dropping it to the ground. Hitting like a rock, Issei looks him dead in the eyes, saying, die. Hearing this, Kokobile thought, you can't kill me, using his full ability with a stab in Issei's chest clean through him. Issei, who smirked at a fine thing, saying, you think that's the worst anything I've ever taken, kid? Not quite. A punch hitting him right in the face. After almost a 20-minute fight with Issei losing blood at an alarmingly large rate, Issei was done. Like, GG, he's on the ground, bleeding out. But for that whole time, he's been bleeding out and fighting, making it where Kokobile is on his ass. Like, he's checked the fuck out. He is not doing shit. But the Fallen Angels had a barrier up that not even, Graphia could break through. I mean, Graphia, Sona, Sona and her entire peerage were trying to break through that damn thing. Graphia was as well. Even Rias' peerage was trying to break through as much as they could. Even with all their strength combined, they couldn't even scratch the damn thing. This is when Issei decided to do something unexpected. Right as he was about to die, he decided to do one last attack. And it wasn't aimed at any of the Fallen Angels since, Kokobile just retreated, seeing Issei damn near dead. Seeing Issei dying, all of them did. Issei stood up one more time, saying, I'm not going to die on the floor. Both times I've died before, I was standing strong. I'm not dying like this. As he stood back up, the last one to attack being Kokobile, stabbing Issei one more time clean through. Issei, who stayed tall, almost like he was an indestructible object, while he still was dying, he died on his feet. The last thing he did was swing his arm as hard as possible with his weapon in hand. A cruel sun hitting one side of it, and a crack hitting the other, shattering the barrier. As he collapsed, as he didn't die, he died on his feet. This is when they proceeded to this is when all of the women were very terrified of what they just saw. Issei's Issei's in the worst condition of his life. He's he's completely dead. He's got no way of fighting this. As he was about to go to finally escape everything, he was stopped. And with 8 pawn pieces in his chest from Rias, 3 from Sona, and surprisingly enough, Grafia having her whole peerage. Since, in this version, Grafia became her own, king after a while, and actually decided never to get really a peerage in case, she never needed one. Never thinking there'd never be a case for one. Putting all 8 of her pawn pieces, but in this version, her entire peerage went to Issei. Noting that was Grafia, who's stronger than most anyone. It took, still, after Grafia's entire peerage, Rias' all 8 pawns, as well as Sona's 3. And they were all mutated pieces. This has never happened before. They think this is impossible. The only time this has ever come close to even happening was a full peerage taken up by one piece, which was basically when a god was basically turned into the piece of a very, very weak devil. But the god kind of didn't give a fuck and killed said devil. And it was just some random, Egyptian god. Probably, but still. As Issei would basically not wake up, but he would then proceed to, hit the ground. As the ladies kind of pushed him over. This is when, surprisingly enough, Sona and basically both Kiba and Saji were the ones who had to try picking Issei's arms up. This being their biggest fucking feat of strength they're going to have to show. They were both able to get his arm on their shoulder, noting it was like picking up an entire brick wall. Both struggling for this. This is when, surprisingly enough, Konako struggled to pick up Issei. And even the other rooks from Sona's peerage tried their damnedest as well. And they all were, together, they were able to get the leg up. Grafia held the head. Sona and Rias had got the torso, with their queens right next to them. And I'm going to say, yeah, that's basically the entire peerages were, and even the knights were helping Konako, as this is when their entire peerage is doing their damage to try hauling Issei back to his house. They all use their own magic circle, and that's how they have to do it, in a triple-looking circle for Issei, getting him to his bed. Noting when he hits that bed, you hear, "Ugh." They're like, what the fuck? Did the bed just sigh? This is when, surprisingly enough, Grafia said, well, he's so heavy that when the air pressure gets out from underneath him, well, it makes a sound. Wow. He's quite unimaginably heavy guy. Yeah. This is when surprisingly enough, Konako said, there's no way he's just 600 pounds. If that's the case, I could probably get him off his feet. But how the fuck is he that heavy? Oh, this is when, surprisingly enough, Grafia would say something unexpected. Well, 600 pounds is the weight that he has to, make himself seem. How heavy is he actually? Well, answer me, Grafia. He's 1,200 pounds. He's double the weight. That still doesn't explain why he was such a struggle to pick up. That's just his body. Explain. With the gear with the weapons he has, it's a lot higher. Explain, Grafia. Rhea saying, because she was just exhausted trying to pick up Issei. As this is when she kind of smirked, saying, look at what's on his right hand and left wrist. Is that the white Tomogachi? Yes. Okay. And Heavenly Axe Rita? Yes. Aren't those the two heaviest weapons in existence? Basically. Wait, do you think altogether we could have lifted the damn thing? I think it would take all the rooks to try even picking up that weapon. It would take the entire peerages to pick up those two weapons. Especially at full size. As this is when all the women decided to sleep next to Issei, since they all kind of have a huge crush on him. The guys were like, this sucks. Kiba not really giving a fuck since he's more of the white knight anyway. But Saji kind of hoped for a harem, so he's kind of screwed over in this regard. As he said, you know what? I'm not done yet. I'll eventually get me a harem. And this is when, surprising enough, Konako revealed that she has a huge crush on Issei because of his strength. And the amount of energy he has. And it was almost like his chi brought her in. Kind of something odd, but true. And they kind of all got brought in by Issei's, chi. Grafia actually saying, I get this area, going right towards Issei's left pec. Noting as big as he is almost enough for her entire body. His abs being the final part. Ria's saying, I think I should get right here, getting on Issei's, right pec. Sona saying, I'm not being left out, and getting in the middle of Issei's chest. They all lay there like it's a bed. Konako deciding, you know what, fine. Taking his left thigh. Curling up to a ball. The other rooks doing the same on the other, grabbing the other ankles. The two queens grabbing the biceps. And going almost all the way down the arm, but not quite. This is when Sona's bishops decided to get the hands. This being perfect for this. As they were laid the fuck, they all slept. They all slept good. And, yeah. When Issei woke up, he was surprised at what he found. His entire body, other than his face, was covered. He said, hello. Surprisingly enough, not surprisingly at all, the first one to wake up was Grafia. Grafia saying, hello, Issei. Sorry, I'll get breakfast started. Yeah, but I don't think I'll be able to eat breakfast with everyone on me. Oh, well, we should explain, as this is when Rias and Sona would both shoot up. Rias and Sona all explaining with Grafia that they are now the kings of Issei, and Issei took up the entire peerage of Grafia. Rias is all 8 pawns, and 3 of the pawn pieces of Sona. Issei kind of surprised that there were only 3 pieces from Sona. Well, you also took up an entire peerage and almost half a peerage from the other ones. Wow. Yes, now. They were also all mutated pieces, saying, isn't that like at least twice what they were ever recorded to be? Yes. Alright, cool. Well, what's today's date? Sunday. I've got some good plans for today. Well, ladies, would you like to smash? Every girl is saying, yep. Even Rias said yes. This is when Issei said, alright, let's go. And this is when we cut over to Monday morning. Everyone's all had their turn and they're all laying passed out on Issei's bed. Issei saying, wow, I've had a complete fun time. Issei going to grab his old mattress since, the entire bed was full of them. Girls actually grabbing him saying, nope. Wrapping all around him. He wakes up the next morning. He goes all the way to the shower, which he has a special bath installed for him. And special shower head, which is about which has to be 15 feet above. Or just about that. So it's giant. This is when Issei was completely done. When he finally woke up to take a shower, all the girls woke up too. They wanted to take a shower as well. Issei showing them that it's a tiny bathroom. They couldn't all do it at once. This is when they said, let's just do it with him. And noting that he was so big, no one else could fit in the tub with him. Ria's thinking, yeah, we've got to remodel this place soon. Issei saying, well, if y'all ever move in, y'all can. But until then, it's technically not my place, it's my dad's. I wonder how much it'll cost me to get it. And once he was completely done, he walked out of there, like did not give a damn. And walked out of there. Once he was done showering, all the girls cleaned up and everything too. Grafia prepared food, since she was the one who bathed next to Issei instead of anyone else, even though she couldn't fit in the tub with Issei in there. She could quite easily get in the tub once he had gotten out to rinse off. Now that they were all completely done, like I'm talking done with all of that, they had this giant feast. All the girls wondering if it'll even be eaten. They all grabbed their amount of food, and once they were completely full and had their complete portions, they know that there were still 4 packages of stuff left and everything. They had like 2 full things of bacon left, 4 loaves of bread, and at least 2 dozen eggs. Issei saying thank you for the meal, as he finished the entire thing in a few minutes, saying, thank you. Sorry, ladies, but I do need to eat quite a bit to stay up my size. Konako saying, and I thought I was going to be the one who ate a lot of food. This is when Issei actually pulled something out of his... This is when Issei actually grabbed something out of a drawer. It was a chocolate bar. He grabbed it and was about to eat it when Konako started begging for one. The other girls wanted one too, so he basically pulled out an entire drawer full of chocolate bars for them to all grab one. Once that was done, and this was like the high class, like really expensive shit for the chocolate, Issei was completely done. They all walked to school trying to grab onto Issei. Surprisingly enough, there was only one person who didn't have to go to school with Issei, and that was, Grafia. But every other girl was latched on to Issei going to school. Thinking Grafia should become an advisor at the school, she applied for that job, and because of devil magic, she got it instantly. She's now the homeroom teacher of Issei. And now, because of this, the next, in 20 minutes is when they find out. Because she kind of pulled that string and kind of quit the job with Issei's father. Issei's father saying, well, he's old enough now, yada, yada, yada. This is when Issei decided, with he finally having it over 60, them having now around, I'm going to say, $80,000. Saved up with his, after all the jobs he's done for around 2 months. He's met Asya, talked with her, and Rias still wound up grabbing Asya and putting her in her peerage. After Issei got over there, beat the living shit out of all the fallen angels, actually killing them all. Except for Freed, everyone else died. As this is only because Freed was able to escape. As this is when Issei completely was done, he was completely just finished. Grabbing Asya and her gear, putting it back on her fingers, walking over to Rias saying, please, Rias, help her. Rias saying, sure, I'll turn her into a bishop. Turning Asya into a bishop, this is when, surprisingly enough, Issei's axe started glowing. At least the fingers of the ends of it, which were the designs where the fingers were, started glowing, surprising him a little bit when green light shot out from his axe, completely binding Asya to Issei, and she actually had a huge love for Issei. Also a lot of lust. So right when she woke up, she actually hooked onto Issei's waist and said, come here, please, please. Issei saying, fine, let's go to my house then. The other girls thinking about moving in, but not sure if they physically could. This is when Rias would actually, they would go through their whole thing, and this is when Rias would actually say, Issei, I need you to sleep with me. Issei saying, sure, let's go. This is right when Grafia, who has a barrier up, stops anyone she doesn't want from getting in there. Someone bashes out the door, starts knocking, saying, excuse me, I would like to request entrance. Grafia, knowing exactly that this is Elsa, saying, no, bye. About to close the door. Elsa saying, excuse me, I don't think you heard me properly. I'm coming in. Really? Grafia using her ice magic saying, are you sure about that? This is when she said yes. As Grafia said, you know what, this will actually be pretty funny. Let's watch this. Sure. Where is Rias, Grimmery? I'll take you to the room. Okay. as right when they get to the door, they hear moaning. This is when Elsa said, I better not be hearing that the way I think it is. As this is when they open the door and see Rias getting it on with a monster that, well, Elsa had never seen something of that size before. She was flabbergasted. She didn't know what to say about this thing. Issei pulled it out and it basically, boom, hit the floor. It was more shocking than any weapon that could ever hit the ground. Her jaw dropped, saying, well, Rias, you're supposed to be engaged. Issei saying, wait, you're engaged, Rias? Rias saying how it was a guy she didn't love, all that. Her parents were trying to force her to, as well as her brother. Her brother not even giving a fuck about Rias fully at this point. Sona did, but Rias, his older brother, he's still a sister con, but not like wanting her to be happy. He wants to see her, put to work and everything, and she doesn't want to be put like that. So this is when Issei started laughing, saying, you know what, we can keep doing it, right, Rias? Rias saying, yes, don't stop. After almost 2 hours straight of this, Urza trying to freeze Issei, using her full magic on Issei, it's not doing anything. As if his body melts the ice, since he's not wielding his axes. He's not wielding his Tamagotchi or his axe. They're both on the floor. This is when she thought of them like they'd be easy to pick up. She does her damnedest to try picking them up, and they both hit, and she can't even get them off the ground. Completely confused on how they're this fucking heavy. As Issei was completely wrapping up, saying, good night, Rias. Rias enjoying herself and falling asleep right next to where Issei would. Issei saying, oh, you're trying to pick those up? Here, let me get those for you. Basically picking them up like as if they were nothing. Remember, a lowly devil like you should never try to pick up my axe. This is when she said, for a two-handed axe, For a two-handed axe, it's way too heavy, and it's way too short. That's when he said it's not a two-handed axe, it's a one-handed axe. My two-handed weapon, as he pulled out the Tamagotchi, went to full size, setting it down next to him. This is a two-handed weapon. She was stunned by the size of this thing. It was twice the size of Issei. And it was long range, so it was the only way it could go. It was already heading out to the hallway, noting how monstrous it was, saying, there's no way you can wield this thing. Why not? These are the legendary, yes I know, don't need to explain them. Now get the fuck out of my house. I'm taking Rias with me. You know what? Let's see this shit. Come on, Grafia. Call Sona too. Saying, sorry Rias, you need to wake up. Aussie having to be the one to heal. Basically restoring the stamina of Rias with a healing power. Rias saying, alright, getting dressed and everything. And they go over to the, Issei's place. Everyone. In Issei's living room, he sits down at this giant chair, like a king on a throne. And Rias is actually sitting on the armrest, latching onto Issei. I mean, it's more of a couch than a single, seat, but as big as he is almost just one seat for him. As this is when, surprisingly enough, Sona sits in the middle, Rias on the left, and on the right is Grafia, all sitting there with the rest of the girls on, the two couches next to it. And yeah, the guys actually being there too, with, surprisingly enough, Gasper there as well. Elsa saying, Gasper's not supposed to be out. What are you letting him out for? Shush, my brother gave me permission to let him out. Now, he's been training with Issei for 2 weeks. So he's strong enough to control his power, so calm down. Fine. Elsa started, acting like she was all tough shit, saying, well, as you know, Riser Phoenix has moved up the engagement. You'll be marrying him tomorrow. Issei started to laugh, saying, you're kidding. You can't move something up without someone's consent, and you're not ordering her to do jack shit. I was saying, excuse you, actually trying to freeze Issei solid. She was actually able to, getting it all around his body. Thinking, how insolent, he thinks he can actually outpower me. The magical berry he had up for a while was doing good, but there's no way he can fully stop my freezing. I can freeze anything in an instant. With a flash freeze. Issei was kind of smirking. Issei was even smirking in it, which no one else was affected by this, since Issei was already standing up. He stood up above Sona, looking down at Elsa, who froze him. This is when he was standing so tall. She thought she was all tough shit, saying, "See, Rias, if I can instantly freeze him, what do you think will happen if he fights Riser? He can't even stop me." This is when Rias said, "Check again," noting that the ice around Issei started to boil instantly. What the fuck? As Issei stood up saying, "I don't want to be put in ice again. Now, I'm going to tell you this one time more, and if you don't listen to me, I am picking you up by your throat and throwing you out of my house. She ain't being forced to do anything, and if you try doing it, or he tries doing it, hell, even if her brother tries doing it, I will pick anyone up who tries it and rip them in half. Am I understood?" Yes. Since that was her strongest ice magic spell, it took her everything to do it. Good. Now, if you won't mind, get the fuck out of my house. We'll see you in the club room tomorrow. Man. As this is when Kiba, Gasper, and Saji said, "Dude, you are fucking terrifying when you are pissed." Oh, I know. I used Conqueror's Hockey to scare the shit out of her even more, though. Well, anyway, let's go. All to bed. This is when they said, "Wait, really?" "Yeah, you said you could fix it up, right, Rias?" This is when, surprisingly enough, even Grafey saying, "I used to work on these too." "Cool, well, if y'all can get it all completely set up for everyone to have a room and everything, making a 6-story, but not tonight, though, okay?" Okay. This is when Issa actually called up his father before the night was over, saying, "Father, what is it, Issei? How much would you like for the house?" $40,000. That's doable. How much time would it take to get this place transferred into my name?" "About a night. Why? Let me just call my lawyers." "Good, I got that much money. Let's go. I'll be back in, say, 2 hours. I'll be back." He vanishes. He's got $40,000 in a briefcase, walking right up to his father's office, which is in, like, a whole other, like, town. Issei not using any train or anything to get there, just full speed blitzing it there. And then Issei decided to do something no one was expecting. Issei completely blew his father's mind when he walked right up to him saying, "Hello, father," actually having to get underneath, like, things so he could fit, cracking his neck saying, "Well, let's go. Let's negotiate this." With the accountants and everything there, Issei placing down 40 grand, saying, "Here's 40 grand, I'll buy the house." Of course, Issei, signing the deed and documents, everything over to Issei. "Alright, now here you go, son. Now you have your own house." "Alright, well, bye." "Alright, goodbye." This is when saying, "Oh, by the way, Grafia quit." "When?" "She quit working for me 2 days ago." "Well, she started working for me 2 days ago as well, father." "Oh, alright, well, goodbye. From now on, we are as if we're told as strangers." This is when 2 guys walk in. Them both acting like they're hot shit, saying, "Who's the giant?" This is when they start talking shit about Issei. Issei looking at them like, who the fuck are they? This is when Issei's father said, "Oh, these are my other sons." "What the? I thought I was your only son." "You see, I can understand why you think that, but, you see, your mother was not, well, she was my wife. Well, she wasn't my only woman." "What?" "Yes, you see, they all have mansions, because I paid for them, everything, as a good father would. Well, I liked my two older sons. They were about 2 years older than you, actually. 2 in 1 year." "Same mother?" "Yes, actually." Alright. This is when an old looking... This is when a blonde lady walks in thinking she's all the hot shit. Says, who's the giant in the room? Honey, could you get him kicked out so I can talk to you? Issei saying, motherfucking excuse you? I don't think you know who the fuck you're talking to. And this is when she said, excuse you? You don't know who you're talking to. That's my husband. Okay. Hey, Dad, I got a question. Yes, son? Does she know who she's talking to, or she is dumb about this one? She does not know who she's talking to. This is when Issei's father said, look, I know I told you. Your sons will be getting my business whenever I am retiring. And son, you will be getting my wealth. The kid's saying, what the fuck? I thought we were getting your wealth. You will have your wealth. And you'll be gaining money from my business. By far more than he's getting. What? I broke it into 4 pieces. The amount of money you're each getting. Wait, but there's only 3 of us. True. Issei gets 2 parts. Why? Because he's twice the size? Yes, actually. Wait, what? Because I actually married his mother. And he's actually entitled to 2 parts. Wait, really? Yes. And also, Issei, your mother's money is also is now transferred to your account. Thank you. By the way, y'all can have fun trying to run this business. As this is when Issei's father revealed something that Issei wasn't expecting to hear. I'll be dying in 3 days. What? You see, boys, I've had cancer for a while now, and I've already been at the brink of death. I'm barely even hanging on. I'm not doing therapy or anything, it just is a waste. So I've set everything up. Issei, you will get half the money, half of my money. His other children's mom said, wait, why? But I'm your wife, why wouldn't you give me all the money? Because you may be my wife now, but my original wife, the one I regret what I did to. I regret cheating on her, so I'm giving her son her money. Wait, but what do you mean her money? Well, this business wasn't originally mine. It was his mother's. She gave it to me when she was dying. And I'm giving it to you two. Good luck running it. And this is this is when Issei said, wow. And this is when he said, the funeral will be held in 2 months. Alright, goodbye. Issei saying, I'll be there. Good, my boy. Let's go. This is when Issei, who wasn't expecting what he was about to get, proceeded to go deal with Riser. Well, that next he kind of used teleportation magic to get there. And how far did he get? All the way home instantly. He said, alright, now this place is by law mine. It's got my name on it, everything. Wow. Well, Rias, you want to make some upgrades? Let's do it. Now, before anything happened, while Issei was asleep, while Issei passed out, the entire house grew, becoming the size of a 7-story mansion. There was now a giant swimming pool on it as well as multiple hot tubs. There was hot tubs, there was even a hot springs. And surprisingly enough, training rooms, everything. Anything you could ever want is there. And on the roof, there's a garden. Issei was smirking, saying, wow, there's even a room for every individual girl to have all their stuff. And there's even 3 rooms for the guys. There's even way more rooms for even more people. Guest rooms, if you would. There's an entire floor full of guest rooms. Issei saying, wow, y'all work well and fast. Of course we do, Issei. And now look at the baths. Holy cow. This is amazing, isn't it? As they all get completely naked and try going to the baths together. Being 20 minutes late to Urza's, trying to talk to them. And have Riser appear, which she actually was on Riser's side, so yeah, she did not give a fuck. This is when, after their long bath, and mainly just having sex in the bathtub, in the hot springs, Kiba, Gasper, and Saji, who, they started living there, started using their bath. They had one designated for them, which was a hot springs. It was nice, it was everything, but it was only big enough for 10 people. The other one was big enough for 100 people. And while it was more than enough for them, so they didn't really care. They all completely had fun, and once they were done, because they just were enjoying themselves a good soak in the bath, they proceeded to walk. When they got ready and everything, they all walked around. They got all the way over to Rias's room. Well, the Occult Research Club. As this is when Issei started laughing, saying, "This is gonna be fun." Issei walks in the room like a king, and notes there's a giant golden throne. This was for Riser to sit on, with a place right for Rias, and one for Yubaluna. Another for at least one other girl. Thinking, and this is when Urza, who didn't tell anyone that this was there, thinking, no one's going to sit in the giant golden throne, is they? There's no way. There's no one that would do that. If it's not specifically assigned for them, they're not going to sit in a giant golden throne. They won't, will they? As this one, Issei proceeds to walk in the room. First thing he did was sit in the giant golden throne. Her saying, "That chair is not meant for you. Excuse me, but it's the only chair big enough for me." Every one of the peerages walk in the room. Sona stood behind her on, that little area on one of Issei's side, as she sat next to Issei. Grafia, who stood right in front of Issei, and sat down, right in his lap. Him still being so much taller that he can just look over her head. And this is when Rias herself was on the other side of Issei with her own peerage on the other side. As the way this chair was put in, it was made for a giant, group around the man. As this is when Riser would say, "Riser Phoenix has a That's my chair, boy. Boy. You're a tiny little ant-sized man. Little boy, so why are you talking to me like I'm the child, little man? Excuse you, I am Riser Phoenix. I am the mighty Phoenix clan. I am the strongest of the..." "Shut the fuck up before I slap you into another dimension. No one can do that." As he was basically hit as hard as Issei possibly could. As he said, "Where the fuck am I?" This is when his head would basically grow back, saying, "What the fuck was that? I hit you so hard that when I used my teleportation circle on you, well, on your head as it severed, yeah, your head went to another dimension." "Where? Dimensional gap? What the how?" "I tore up in a little space." "How did you do that?" "Strength." "Alright. That doesn't scare me. Just a little bit of healing needed." As this is when Issa said, "Listen, Riser. Let's keep it all truthfully here. You ain't getting with Rias. I don't give a fuck how tough you think you is. I don't care if the entire Phoenix clan comes out my ass. All y'all are going to be able to do is piss me off. So, y'all can fuck right off." "Excuse you. We are the mighty Phoenix." Rias saying, "I'm not marrying you." "Too bad, you're going to. And I'll make sure this little servant of yours will be punished for what he's said." He's starting to laugh, saying, "Oh please, your strongest attack will bounce off of me. I won't even need to use my gear. I'll just beat your ass." "Highly doubtful." This is when, surprisingly enough, Urza said, "Well, if you refuse to marry him, you must have a raiding game with him." Issei knowing that he's been Rias knowing that he's been in a lot of raiding games, and she hasn't. Saying, "Fine, let's do this. Oh, and by the way, Rias, you will get 1 week of prep time. good luck, starting to cackle as she walked away. This is when Riser said, hold on, Rias, you should know who you're up against. Snapping his fingers as the entirety of Riser's peerage, including his own sister, would appear. Calling you Baluna, and this is when Issei would say something. Kind of a little bit jealous that he's got a full group like this. Oh, what's wrong? Upset that I have a full group? Issei saying no. I'm upset that your harem is so diverse. Oh, well, you can only dream of having one like this, couldn't you? Yeah, I can probably make it a reality in like 10 minutes flat. Oh, please, you can't just buy women. Well, I did, but you can't just do that. I don't need to. I literally can go to anywhere I want, and I can get any girl I want. Oh, really? Prove it. As this is when he walked right up to Riser's entire peerage, except for you, Baluna, since she's over there at the other side of that room with Riser. He basically picked up, went down to, her level, and kissed Ravel's hand. Ravel's starting to blush, actually liking Issei, since she thinks big muscular men are amazingly looking. All the girls do in this version. As she would actually start blushing, and the entire of Riser's group would actually say, could we call you sometime? Issei actually giving them his number. Riser saying, delete that number now. But why? Because I am your man. You do not get to be with any other man. Issei starting to laugh, saying, why? You're not that much of a man, apparently. This is when, surprising enough, Baluna even said, 5 inches is not much, Riser. Shut up, Baluna. No. Excuse you. Okay, bye. Walking right over to Issei and going with him. This is when Riser started to get a little pissy, saying, excuse you, you are my peerage. You will not be bending to his will. Listen, boy. I will rip you apart when we fight. Use that week to do whatever you need to. Set your funeral plans. Why? I still got, a few centuries to go. You need to set yours, though. You only have a few days. Excuse you. I am the mighty Riser. I don't give a fuck who you are. Now, get the fuck out of the club room. No, I will not leave. I am wherever I want to be. Get the fuck out of the club room before I take your head and shove it up your ass as hard as I fucking can with my boot. Seeing that he's wearing, the same kind of boots as Whitebeard wears, says, you wouldn't as this is when Riser said, where the fuck is my head? And this is when he feels a rip in his pants, as a full-on feeling of pain went through his, abdomen. Where is my head? Where the fuck? I told you what I was going to do, as a complete kick of Riser's head clean into his upper intestines. This is when his entire peerage was like, ew, what the fuck? Issei saying, heal from that, dumbass. This is when Baluna said, I can help you, sir. Basically putting an explosion to the inside of his body, blowing apart his head. As it all came drooping out of his butt, Issei said, that man is nasty. Making a ball of fire that would evaporate it all. Rias making destruction that would remove it, and magic circle that would get rid of it. Riser saying, how dare you, you pathetic worm. I'll end you for what you just did. Alright, see you in a week. This version, Riser's shitting himself scared, saying, he put my head up my own ass and kicked it as hard as he fucking could. Yeah, no, I'm out of that. I'm not going to win that fight. Brother. Calling both of his older brothers, saying, yes, Riser, train with me for 1 week. Come on. They said, alright. They go with him for 1 week of solid Phoenix training. His entire peerage, trained by his parents. And once they were completely done with their training, Riser noted that he was at least twice the strength. He was at least 4 of what he was before. Maybe even as strong as his older brothers. He was obviously far stronger than that before. His sister actually being around the same strength he was, if not higher than what he was previously. Issei straight up just walks it. When they have the battle, because Issei's training just straight up did not give a fuck. What he did was he said, alright, come on. Sona, would y'all appear to join us, or Sure we can, don't worry, here. As this is when, surprisingly enough, Sona's entire peerage. They had to break it up into groups. Knights versus knights, rooks versus rooks, pawn versus pawn? Thinking that was fucking stupid, saying, actually, you know what? The training will proceed like this. All versus issei. Issei saying, alright, I don't mind. Sona, Rias, and even Graphia. As this is when Akano and, well, I forgot her name. Sona's queen. As they would all try jumping Issei. Issei said, "You're moving far too slow to actually be able to deal any damage to me." After one day of training, the guys were spent. They were on their ass. They weren't able to even throw a punch at this point. Kiba couldn't even summon a sword. The girls, they were almost as exhausted. Konako was the only one who still had a little bit of energy left because, while she was punching, her main thing was that she was hitting as hard as she could, not very fast. And once they were all, this is when they revealed that there was technically only 4 rooms they were going to be using. The giant one for Issei and all the girls, and, well, technically, Saji, Kiba, and Gasper all shared a room. Actually, no, Gasper had his own room, reserved for him with the vampire freaking feeling of it. It's creepy as hell, so yeah, he's the one who got his own room. As this is when, after that week of training and sex, basically, was that all the girls would really do is training, sex, as Issei would completely be the one, actually, making dinner for a few days, noting it was harder than it looked. And he made portions for 4 of himself, and then had to make 2 more for the rest of everyone. By that I mean, he had to make 6 portions for himself size, so everyone could eat and fill their bellies. And, admittingly, he was surprised that we only had to make that much, but noting rooks had to eat a shitload of food. And when you're burning through as much energy as they are, they have to eat even more food. This is when Issei decided to do something he wasn't planning on for a long time. He decided to remove his, weights that he always has to use so he doesn't overwhelm everyone he's against. He feels he's got enough control over his abilities and strength. So yeah, he's walking into the battle. And the first thing that happens when he gets in there is he's standing there. He says, "Alright, Rias, so have you figured out the plan?" "Yes. Konako, Kiba, go that way. Issei, bullet charge the motherfuckers. Gasper and Asia, stay with me." Alright. Issei, who walked forward, who's only rocking the Escanor stash because, well, it was ripped apart a while back, and he hasn't felt like he could get it back yet. As he walked forward, every step he takes started to make the earth shake a little bit more. This is when, surprisingly enough, Riser sent his full peerage at Issei. So where Kiba and Konako were guarding, didn't have anyone there. Because Issei straight up said, "I'm going to the gymnasium. Come at me, motherfucker." Riser's entire peerage is there, including himself. Issei's starting to laugh, saying, "Really? Well, let's go." As he overwhelmed all the ladies, using dress break, actually. Them all saying, "How dare you, you pervert." Issei saying, "Hold on. I just need you to hold still," throwing a cruel sun at them. Riser, having a cruel sun thrown at himself, basically does his damnedest to block it using Flame Wall. All this does is slow it down. Even the best of his blocking, using a wall of fire, the sun came through and beat him and burned his ass. He healed in about a few seconds, saying, "Fire should not be able to hurt a phoenix." "Oh yeah, how about cracking?" "What are you talking about cracking? That makes no sense." As he swung his hand as hard as he can, and this made it where the crack, where it basically shook the entire, the entire verse they were in. Well, the entirety of the, little dimension they were in. So, for the rating games. Even Graphia and even everyone could feel it. So Zex actually was kind of scared, seeing this power was above his own, thinking he has to be using everything at once right now. Surprisingly enough, he wasn't even using half of his strength, as issei kept swinging as hard as fucking possible, every hit surpassing the last. And this is when he decided enough's enough and used a final knockout, knocking clean through Riser, who gave up. This is when Kokubio would come back at him. And this version, issei seeing him said, "Nah, come here, motherfucker." Kokubio having no one to back his ass up, he was like, shit. As he was grabbed by issei by the leg, saying, "Yeah, I got your ass." Starting to bounce Kokubio off the ground and started to hit him as hard as possible, and it actually almost killed him when the White Dragon Emperor, Volley, flew in saying, "I'm gonna need you to stop." issei turned his head and saying, "No." Starting to keep on beating on, saying, "Well, we need to question him on who he's working with." "Fine. Here." Throwing him, saying, "But I'm taking the wings." Kicking him as hard as he could, but taking the wings back, saying, "That was all my wings." Yep. It's basically saying, I'm gonna make a feather like thing out of this. As he took all the wings off, like all the feathers off the wings, and used it to make something special. He used the feathers to make a very, very durable parka. Kind of a winter jacket for Grapia as a gift. But as many wings as there were, because it would only take about one wing for a parka, so he made one for every one of the girls. Eventually, having to use the ones that he had from a long time ago, which he had from the other fallen angels. As he said, "Okay, and now I am done with that part, at least." Now, he gave them all to the girls and everything. They were happy as shit. And for Kiba, he gave him a black feathered kind of thing. I'm gonna say it was like a black feather headband thing. That he was like, what's with this? You ever heard of Hermes wearing like a hat with a feather on it? Yeah, well, this goes to a hat to one of the hats. What do you mean? As he grabbed a fedora that he thought would look perfect on Kiba. It was pitch white. Put it on perfectly. Put it on Kiba, saying, "See, perfect." Saji saying, "What do I get?" "You get this. It's basically the same thing." And for Gasper, finally, he said, "Here," handing him a surprisingly well-designed feather thing for, like, it's basically basically another hat thing, basically. Them thinking, yeah, we look way better, I guess. We all look more stylish, but this is when Sona said, "I love it, but I don't think I can wear it during school." True. I mean, maybe Kiba, Gasper, and Saji could. Maybe, but I don't know. Anyway, well, let's go. This is when the whole thing would happen. When Issei and Volley would actually, meet up again. And in this version, when that whole thing happened, Issei said, "Yeah, let's go, Reese." They get there, and Issei instantly starts whooping the shit out of the entire, and I do mean entire, people there. This is when they're holding Konako hostage, when Issei started laughing, pulling out a sword, same one Michael gave him, debating whether he should use it, noting it cut his skin. This is when he splashed blood right in the face of Gasper. Gasper's drinking the blood, saying, "Yes." Going into his full power, tearing them all apart. There's only about 3 left, though, so there wasn't much impressive, but still, they got Konako down, and they got there. They got the fuck out of there. They got all the way back there, and this is when, surprisingly enough, Issei has to fight Volley, who was basically faking it the whole time. So now that Issei has to fight him, Issei kind of pops his neck and walks forward, now standing at a surprising 12:01. I know I already did his height a while back, but still, I need to do it again. At 12:01, he looks like a mountain to volley. Even in the armor, he thinks he'd need Juggernaut Drive to match sizes with this guy. This is when they start fighting. Issei just yells balance breaker, holding his two monstrous weapons as he picked up a third weapon and put it in his mouth as if it was 3 sword style. Them kind of being surprised, saying, "What the hell is he doing?" As he basically used this and made it as if it was more of a, well, spike, a dragon like nose horn, if you would, the way even Great Red has it. But it was with a Dragon Slayer sword instead of anything else, surprising them at least. Him flying forward and headbutting with the stabbing part going clean through the arm of Ollie, saying, "Is that what he was doing?" As he mixed into the helmet, saying, "Perfect." This is when Issei would decide, "I'm not going to hold back anymore," and started just beating the living shit out of Ollie. It got to the point when that Goku-looking guy hit him in the face with the stick, and he straight up just blocked that and kicked him so hard in the jaw. He was sent flying. And then, since that had happened, that was it. GG's, he's done. This is when Kuroka said, "Excuse me, but I need you to stop." Issei turning towards her saying, "Yeah, I don't think I can do that," as they vanished into a black hole, saying, "The fuck was that?" Kuroka saying, "Bye." Issei vanishing and being right above her, saying, "Where are you going?" Yeah, nope. Fireball. Hitting Issei in the face, kind of covering his eyes for a second, saying, "What was that for?" She vanished as quick as she could, saying, "Yeah, fuck that. Y'all almost got me killed by that guy." As this is when Issei would proceed to just say, "Whatever. Well, let's go back to what we were doing." Talking to Konako, "What's wrong?" Since she looked very pissed off. And after this point, he still has, well, Zenobia joined his harem as well. And she was enjoying herself too. She got whatever she wanted. And anytime she would bring condoms, Issei said, "Sure, but you need a bigger size." She said, "But this is the biggest size I can find." "I know." Fine, no need for them. And she throws them away while they smash. And once that was all done, he started to kind of sigh a little bit. This is when their new summer break would happen, all that shit. And they would even go to... Actually, yeah, this is when the summer break would happen. They would go directly to the new place. The underworld. Issei going in there saying, "Wow, it's pretty cool, pretty cool. Well, let's go deal with some shit." Once they get there, no one was there. Well, this is when, surprising enough, when they were dropped off to deal with Tannen, Blaze Mirror Dragon, Issei said back up, using his full power, even doubling his size in the true one form. Every step starting to make even Tannen a little bit afraid, as you hear boost in every step he does. Every balance breaker step as the armor starts to seem almost on fire. With cracks around his body, him beating the shit out of Tannen for almost 20 minutes straight. This is surprising enough when, of all people, Sir Zex would actually have to intervene with, Azazel as well, basically saying, "Stop your shit." Using their full power, which got Issei's attention, he catches a ball of destruction and a light spear, strongest ones they can make, and basically says, "Yeah, no." Throwing them to the ground, saying, "Yeah, so what was that for? We need you to stop before you kill one of our allies." Well, he was trying to kill my allies. This is when he said, "Issei," by Drake saying, "You did a little too much. That is Tannen. He's a Dragon King. You fought as if you were fighting me. Please don't ever do that again. You almost killed him." This is when Tannen said, "Thank you, Drake. Why'd you have to say it so late? Hey, you were the one who wanted to fuck with my wielder, so you kind of had that one coming. Fair, fine. Good, now, What have we learned? Don't piss off the wielder of Drake. What else have we learned? Issei chiming in? I don't know. Don't piss off Issei. Got that? Good. Now, this is when, surprisingly enough, they were all a little bit concerned. They would do their whole time of training, Issei versus Tannen. Issei was told, no gear, let's go. And Issei started smirk saying, let's go. And it wasn't just Issei versus Tannen. It was Issei versus Sir Zex, Tannen, and Azazel all having gears. Since, Azazel gave them a few so they could use them. After about 20 minutes worth of doing this shit, they were completely done. They were completely out of energy at all. Issei was smirking, saying, alright, y'all did good. They were all like, why does it feel like more training for us than him? This is when Michael would appear in the underworld saying, hello. I got a break from heaven, so I figured I'd train with you for a little while. How much time you got? I've got 4 hours. Let's go. And they all try training together using Phoenix Tears to heal, as they wanted to make it a 4v1. Everyone in the underworld can feel this power. It's not hard to miss. This is when, surprisingly enough, the other demon lords would come in. Sona's older sister, Ijuka, and the one for Asmodeus. They all come in, and they're all fighting, and they're all getting their ass beat. As Issei pulled out the weapons for the first time in front of them, saying, wait, what the fuck? Issei, who's fighting as if he's ready to kill, was told stop by Michael. As the time was just about up, Issei saying, what's wrong? Those weapons, yeah, I know. But how'd you get them? You don't need to know that. Explain. I'll do that later. Fine. I'm amazed someone can wield them, though. Good luck. Thank you. Now, bye. Alright, goodbye. And this is when he went back to training in Tannen's territory his own way. Meditation. And training against all the dragons at once. Even at one point, Tannen used his power to get into the dimensional gap and used everything he had to find where, Great Red was. He could see him saying, Great Red, Great Red. Great Red could not hear shit. He was busy hanging out. This is when he said, fine. As this when Tannen threw his full force attack, which was a meteor spear, as it hit right into the side of Great Red. Great Red turning his head a little bit saying, what is it, Tannen? Tannen saying, I need you to train with someone. Explain. He beat my ass so bad that I feel like I'm a child. I'm intrigued. Let's take me there. They basically bring Issei to the dimensional gap saying, hello. This is all. He's a mountain of a man, but he's not quite big to my standards. Still, we need you to be the one to train with him. Anyone other than you would probably get their ass whooped. Oh, please, he can't be that strong. Using the entirety of Drake's abilities, the entirety of Whitebeard, and the entirety of Escanor, hitting as they start their match. Great Red only started with about 5% of his full strength, thinking this should be more than enough for him. Getting his ass whooped. 10%. Still getting his ass whooped. 50%. Still getting his ass whooped. Saying, fuck it, 80%. As an 80%, it was actually more of an even fight. Until the Dragon's Lightning Sword came out, and the full armor thing would happen. As this is when you hear his full roar, sending even Great Red flying backwards. Great Red saying, fuck it, 90%. Going at this for a complete dead stalemate fight. Another boost. 100%. They're fighting as if they are equals. As you hear another boost. They're still fighting as if they're somewhat equals. As you hear two more boosts. As you hear, I give, by Great Red. Tannen saying, you couldn't even defeat him? What the fuck? Simple. He's got two strong beings that power make him almost unstoppable. As well as Drake. So, in other words, he's by definition unstoppable. This is when Issei said, does that mean I'm basically a god now, if I defeated a god? You know what, I'll give you this, kid. You are now basically the one who will need to take over the mantle of God of the Bible. Alright, sure. He does that, and actually, right when he does, he's still part of Reese's peerage, everyone's peerage, really. And when the whole fight has to happen, Issei still saved Asi, and that was just him coming out and beating the absolute ass of that one guy. And right when he thinks Asi is dead, he yells, "Juggernaut, drive." Everyone turns their head, kind of shitting themselves, saying, yeah, fuck that, I'm out. And they escape. The girls all want to stay, but this is when Kiba did something he wasn't expecting. He went hit full speed blitz and actually knocked all of them out with a neck chop. Gasper turning into bats, Saji using his full strength to hold at least four of them, and Kiba doing the same thing. They get them all out of there. Once they were all out of there, they were wondering what the fuck to do. Once that guy was done completely, Great Red appeared, saying, I can help with this. Ophis appears saying, I hate to work with you, but this seems strong enough to destroy the dimensional gap, so I have to intervene. As this is when Vali would say, good, you two fight him, I'll be dividing his strength every second, okay? Then him going into Juggernaut Drive, Ophis going into her actual dragon form, and Great Red actually fighting Issei. As they start to all have this fight 3 versus 1, Issei is easily outmatching Ophis at every single turn. Great Red, he's actually keeping up with while outmatching Ophis, and Volley can't even keep up. At this point, it's getting to the point where just Great Red and Ophis are fighting Issei on the ground, while Valley and Albion are just dividing his power. After about 20 minutes of this, of dividing, he starts shrinking down. They use the Grab and Dragon song, and that's it. They finished it. They took out the threat, which was Issei. This is when, they still end up going to, that same thing. They wound up going to the same trip, I think, and this is when we're going to skip that trip because Issei trip just holds the Nine-Tailed Fox down and use Booby Lingual. Then he went to the ever-known fight between him and Cyber-Org. Every single thing happened as canon until he fights Cyber-Org. When that fight happens, it is a whole nother breed of fight. First thing that happened when Cyber-Org tries throwing a punch, it bounces off of Issei. They have to work together, Cyber-Org and that gear, to even land a scratch on Issei's cheek. Issei said, good job. For that, I will give you 4% of my strength. Wait, what? As he didn't even pull a weapon out and just used his bare fist, saying, you know what? You've done well. You've survived 4% of my strength with a punch. By that, I will give you the honor of a full-powered attack. Since that's what you're using, I'll use the same. As he used his full abilities and actually pulled his weapons back and swung them as hard as he could, almost chopping the arms of Cyber-Org off, almost doing it, just about almost, a cruel stun hitting Cyber-Org and a crack, sending him flying, and a horn stab, cutting him pretty badly. This is right when he passed out, but he stayed standing as he passed out. Issei saying, a true man to the end. I respect it more than anything you could imagine here. As he collapsed, Issei saying, now, let's go to his mother. They said they needed me to try again to help her. This is right when he gets there, right while Cyber-Org's still knocked the fuck out, he's healing Cyber-Org's mama, using Booby Lingual. And when he's done, it happens. This is when Issei fully took up the mantle of God, the God of the Bible. So Zex actually still had to step down completely. He stepped down from his title. But Rhea still became the House of Grimmery leader. Grathia, who basically is the right hand of God when she needs to be, has done her whole thing. And they took out the Chaos Brigade since, the strongest member in there, the leader of it, got the asshole by one guy who says, yeah, we're having peace, or everyone can box, or whoever doesn't want peace can box with me. And no one was able to box with him, so, yeah, they gave up. Volley still showed his goal about trying to become the one to defeat Great Red. Issei, who's already done it twice at this point, saying, "Yeah, good luck with that, kid." Volley eventually getting strong enough to take over the name Satan. Take over the name Lucifer from, Sir Zex. Cyro Org became the one to take the name Asmodeus. And yeah, that's basically what happened. Issei eventually having a son with all of them, deciding to name his two first children, one with brown hair, one with complete blonde hair. That was with Rias and Sona. The one with brown hair was from Rias' side, and with blonde hair was with Sona. He named his son with Sona. He decided to name him Whitebeard. Actually, you know what? No, it was Edwin. But you know what? No, it's gonna be Ace. And he chose to name the other one Meliodas. As kind of a callback to the Seven Sins and the all thing. This is when he decided to say, that's enough. As this is when they had to take over the mantle of God as he died. 10,000 years later. And even their own kids took over their mantle after they died. Eventually, it went to the point where 4 people were taking over the title of God, until his great-great-grandson, named Escanor, in memory of Escanor, would actually be the one to overthrow it all and be the true new God. As there was complete peace in all the realms. There was complete calmness. This was thousands upon thousands of years later, though. So everything was fine, calm, and that's it. That's what if Issei was a reincarnation of Escanor and Whitebeard.